Okay, so this first part of the test, we need to know the general form y equals a parentheses x minus h to the n power plus k. Why? Because if you know h, you know that it's a shift, a translation left and right, and you have to think opposite. And if you know k, then you know that that's your vertical shift up and down. And we also know that a is a vertical compression or stretch. So anyways, if we take a look at this linear function, the first one, which says f of x equals 5x plus 2, and we want to move it up vertically 4 units. Well, moving up, we know, is the k value. So we need to move up 4 units. So what that actually means is that we're going to go to the 5x plus 2 and go up 4 units by adding 4 to the k. So our g of x function, that's just the new name, is 5x plus 6 because you went up 4 units. Okay, let's jump to option C, or part C. It says horizontally moves right 4 units. Horizontally moves right 4 units. So when you're moving left or right, that's your h value, and you need to think opposite, right? So if we're moving right 4 units, that's in the positive direction. If you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, that's in the positive direction. So when you put it in here, you need to think opposite, and you're going to end up with a minus 4 in there with the x. So once again, there is no parentheses on the original function. So we need parentheses around that x, and that's what I'm going to do. Here goes. I have g of x equals 5 parenthesis x, and notice this is where I'm going to put in my h value. There it is, the minus 4, because you think opposite of right 4, it goes in as a minus 4. Let's not forget about the plus 2 at the very end. Anyway, this is my answer, but I need to simplify it because it's linear. I could actually simplify it. So I'm just going to move it a little to the side to actually simplify here. I'm going to distribute. So when I go 5 times x, 5 times 4, I'm going to get 5x minus 20. But I still have the plus 2 that's on the outside. So my final answer for part C is going to be 5x minus 18. And that's my g of x function. I have to put g of x equals right there. Whoops, that's ugly. So yeah, let's just pretend that it's nice and neat. Let me just write it again. G of x equals, and that's a 5 right there. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to reflex over the x-axis. So you want to take f of x and reflect it over the x-axis. So the trick to this is, remember, to reflect over the x-axis, you change the sign of y. To reflect over the y-axis, you change the sign of x. Okay, so right here we're going to reflect over the x-axis, so we need to change the sign of y. So what we're going to do is go to the function and change the sign of y. If I have a 3y, I'm going to change it to negative 3y. The question is, where's y at? Well, that's an x, that's a 2, that's a... There is no y. Wait a minute, f of x is really y. So when we say change the sign of y, what I'm really saying is change the whole thing, because the whole thing is y, right? This is y right here, so that means that the whole thing is y, so I need to change the sign of y, which means I need to change the sign of the whole thing, and that's how we get the answer negative 5x minus 2, okay? So reflecting over the x-axis is going to be g of x equals negative 5x minus 2. Okay, I changed the sign of y. Let's move on to the last one. And the last one we could vertically compress, which would be multiplying the y value by 1/4, and the y value would be the whole thing. So I multiply everything by 1/4. That's how I would do this one. Or when I horizontally compress or stretch, I multiply only the x value by the reciprocal of the value that I give you. So what I'm going to do is simply go to the x, and I want to horizontally stretch by 4. I need to actually multiply just the x by the reciprocal of 4. So that would give me 5 times 1/4. Okay, so 5 times 1/4 is 5/4. So let me just... go to the horizontal stretch by a factor of 4 and write the answer there. There it is. And it's also important to remember that you do not multiply anything else by the reciprocal 1/4. Only the x value. So it only got multiplied 5 times 1/4, which becomes 5/4. But what about the 2? You don't mess with it, because to do a horizontal compression or stretch, you only multiply just the x by the reciprocal of the value that I give you, and the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. So once again, 5 times 1/4 is 5/4. That's how we get our g of x function here. For our final one, let's do a vertical stretch by a factor of 3, and it moves vertically up 4 units. Okay, so a vertical stretch, what is a vertical stretch? Vertical means up and down, so we're going to stretch it. Remember, stretching or compressing is really multiplying, and what are we multiplying? Since we're messing with the vertical up and down, that means we're multiplying the y by 3. So I need to multiply the y by 3. Where's the y at? Well, the y is the whole thing, right? So you need to multiply the whole thing by 3, okay? So we're going to multiply the whole thing by 3. Okay, so let me actually see it right there, okay? So that's a 5x plus 2. If I multiply it by 3, it's going to be a 15x plus 6, okay? And I'm not writing g of x because right now I'm just working on the math. So far I've vertically stretched by 3, but then there's also another movement. It says vertically up by 4. So how do you move it vertically up? Remember, the moving up 4 is really a k value that you're adding. So I right now have a k value of 6. I need to add 4 to it, and that'll give me my final answer. G of x equals 15x plus 10, because 6 plus 4 is 10.